Germany, and I had to find out why some plants just didn't grow, and I ended up with a shovel and saw that, where the soil wasn't healthy, we had quite miserable root systems. And where the soil was healthy, we had good root systems. So then the question is why, and that was kind of what I studied then. And in this case, it had a lot to do with organic matter and mycorrhiza. But that's not always the case. These are actually for berry roots for the berry growers. But it's always worth having a look at the roots, and I'll tell you why. Because nutrient and water use efficiency has a lot to do with roots. I mean, how do plants take up nutrients from roots? So if you can't grow with roots, we can't grow with crops. I just said what I said there. So you need plants with deep roots, as deep as possible, and healthy roots. And usually, if the soil is not in good condition, that's when you get diseases. So the diseases are a symptom of something being wrong. The same as we can get sick quite easily when we're tired and stressed, and then there are diseases that affect us far more than if we're really fit and healthy. It's the same thing. So I'm just looking at you've probably heard that people talking about physical and biological soil health or the factors, and I was quite good thinking we can always very well think about the negative things. So how can we stuff it up? So one of the issues is loss of organic matter. And I know that in the sandy soils you start off kind of no organic matter, but in irrigated crops like vegetables, you can actually build a little bit of organic matter, and things get a bit easier, because to me it's black magic. It does a lot of good things not listed in there. And organic matter is really important for soil life. So having no organic matter, nothing can live there. And the soil life is very important for the healthy roots and also to combat diseases. So it's quite important. And I know it was difficult in some stage to actually add compost or add organic matter because of the cellar flies. I think that has settled down a bit. But to actually be able to bring recycled waste, there are actually systems where that's done on farm in something like 20-foot containers. So there's a whole lot of ways of building organic matter. Probably one of the important is what we're talking about. If you look at the nutrient holding capacity of soils, organic matter is the best thing to hold nutrients in the soil, better than clay particles, and sand doesn't really hold anything, unfortunately. It's just everything, so you irrigate and everything just flushes through really quickly. So that is a real challenge for this area, the sandy soils, and nutrient use efficiency, that everything just disappears. But having a little bit more organic matter helps, holding onto the nutrients. And of course the water. This one back. Another thing that people often forget, that the soil is actually air in it, and if you have more organic matter, there's more air. In sandy soils, it's not such a problem, but if you have clay soils, to have enough air in the soil is really an issue. It's the same. I know a soil scientist always has a good demonstration of putting a plastic bag on his head and saying that's how soil life feels if you waterlog the soil, because there's no air. People very often are very hung up about the microbes, but we have actually the critters, all the different little beasties who are just as important, and they're starting by, if you have crop residues, it's these critters who start chewing it up, not the microbes. The microbes come later. So you need these critters, and in soils you can actually see, sand again is more challenging, but you can see the critters for what, because they're doing stuff, building holes and building cavities, so they're quite important. Not only worms, you can see I've got some pictures of critters there. The other really important things, I think there's the third on my list before, is soil structure. Structure means in a house, like a structure here is the building, the windows, that's all structure. The soils is the way all the particles are arranged. And what compaction does, or bad structure, is if the soil has too much weight on it, especially wet soil, what happens is, you can see, I don't know whether this works, yes? You have less holes in the soil. So there's less space for water, air, and for things to live. So a soil that is like that it's much harder to manage. It's not that it's unmanageable, but you will, as you can see, this fills up with water really quickly. But because there is not much places for water to be, it dries out really quickly. So in compacted soils, the cycle of irrigation, it has to be very little water, very often, and that's the challenge. Whereas, if you have fluffy soil, like the one on the left, which is unfortunately for you guys, a Tasmanian red soil, it looks a bit better and it's much easier to manage. And you can, irrigation water lasts a bit longer. Just a quick thing, soil texture very much, soil texture means how big the different granules are, has a big influence on how much water and you can store on how much area. But the really important thing is to know that with over-irrigation, the effects on the plants are the same as drought, because they actually can't breathe. But most people are not aware. So for a happy plant, you will have about half of the soil is out of solid matter. So half of it is mainly minerals and the organic matter. The other half should be just water and air. So there's quite a bit of water and air in the really ideal soil. So as soon as it's less than half is water and air, it's much harder to manage. And then of course what we often manage mostly in nutrition is the chemical side of the soil. So doing soil testing and putting fertilizer on, because obviously plants need fertilizer. And again, in a soil that's compacted in poor condition, it might need more feed, because there is not much root system to explore the soil. It doesn't go as deep and as wide. So you can put, lettuce is a really interesting one. Lettuce root systems are pretty miserable. So you need to actually far more fertilizer than you would need if they had proper root systems. So it's really worthwhile when you look at also crop genetics. The root system size is very important. I know for potatoes, so we've got Russell Burbank, which unfortunately is still grown, it's got miserable root systems, so they need a lot of fertilizer. Whereas some of the newer varieties have big root systems and need far less fertilizer and water. So certainly, looking at having big root systems is very important. Solidity, salinity, I think there's some issues here with that, and it affects how you run your nutrition. For instance, if there's high salt in the soil, you might need more potassium to actually be able for plants to regulate water. Usually you need a bit more phosphorus. So again, you can manage salinity in saline water, but the nutrition needs to be done accordingly. So there is no recipe like one fits all. We take the recipe from our reseller and we chuck it on. If you know the challenges of the soil, and you can actually say that we do. Usually it's usually the sodium in the soil. It's like salt you put on your food. Is going to affect the uptake of potassium. So there's a few little things you can do to make it easier. So in summary, there's actually really two things. If you want to have good nutrient and water use efficiency, which is the WE and the NUE, is to have sufficient water and air for soil life and wood growth, which means a good soil structure, no compaction. And organic matter is really important. And it's more important than the fertilizer, because organic matter will help needing less fertilizer. I talked about the challenges. So what can you do? A lot of the growers I've been working with have started to use cover crops. And there is actually good information from the project in the poster where it says here, what do you want to achieve, what kind of cover crops you want. And I know a few years ago, also when we started, the cover crop had to be taller than me, and had to flower at 20%, and you had to do all these different things. That's not really necessary anymore. We found out even if you have ryegrass as a cover crop, or something that can be done quickly, and really important what we learned, you have to be able to get rid of it. You have to actually get rid of the organic matter. So it's a bit of thought has to go into it, but even a short cover crop will help. And we started now with one of our South Australian demo-site growers who was going to actually, he wasn't keen on cover crops because of the water need and a lot of other reasons, but he was keen to have a flowering cover for his IPM program. So he grows brassicas, and he wants to use integrated pest management. He's doing that, but once one of his bays is harvested, all the beneficiaries have nowhere to go. So we're going to look at just putting just one just one bed of chickweed, and not chickweed, buckwheat in. So the buckwheat will then hopefully be a home for the beneficial insects, and then he could, ahead of each crop, he could plant a bay of buckwheat. And I hope that he learns that buckwheat is actually really easy to grow and really easy to get rid of, and is really good for the beneficiaries. He might just see how much the soil is improved by doing that. The other thing is actually, if you want to lose organic matter, there's two things you can do: tillage, and fallow. So the more the soil is covered, the less the loss of organic matter. And the reason is all the critters that I had on the pictures, they eat it. And what they do is they eat it up and then it's gone. So if you don't have something growing there, you just lose it. And then irrigation, you've got obviously all the specialists here. What you can see on that picture there, the blue is where the water goes. So we just put footer in there. So it's a very uneven irrigation. So it's really worthwhile knowing, and this is from an orchard, and we've done it in vineyards, but it's really worthwhile. Do you actually have good water distribution? Is your irrigation system set up properly? And I guess you've got all the specialists here who can help you with that. All the interesting when you're using lime, keeping the pH up right is really important for soil health, and for it increases microbial activity, which is really weird. But I did trials looking at manure additions and also liming, and actually it also kicked on the microbial activity. Maybe it's the calcium, but it worked. So how do you know where you're going? I like to monitor to manage. People wouldn't go into a client where you don't see they have all the instruments working. This is why we didn't write me yesterday. But people with a crop don't seem to want to know what it's doing. So again, there's a lot of people who can help you with irrigation monitoring, but also looking at, you can actually have a look at wood growth, have a look at what the soil looks like, what the woods look like, to have an idea how it's going. It's not all about fertilizers or the chemicals, especially not for soil-borne diseases. And then we can have, as I said, if people are interested, to just calculate some of the indicators, and then you can see how you're going, and then you can say, if you're not going well, what can we do? And we can hopefully help with that as well. Another thing, just quickly, we're going to have in May in Adelaide masterclass on soil-borne disease management, where people can, usually masterclass means you already know a little bit, and then afterwards hopefully know a little bit more. That was a very popular kind of workshop, and we're going to hold that again next May. So anybody who gets the bulletin can keep an eye on that, and hopefully it's not so far to Adelaide. Some people can come and have a go at it. Thank you.